I'll be going through the answers quickly, so make sure your course book is open and in front of you, and please stop and rewind the video as you need to. So, got your book open in front of you? Are your answers in capitals? Want to know why the answers are the answers? Then let's go. For question number 1, easy peasy, what we need here is a preposition, clearly, to describe events which are happening everywhere around the world, which is why the answer is around. Now you might be thinking, why is the answer not across the world? And it's a very good question. Well, it's because of the possible dual meaning of across. Across could also mean around the world, but across could also mean on the other side of the world to where you're standing now. And that possible double meaning might not be automatically understood by the reader or the listener, which is why the preposition around the world is clearer in this particular context. Question number 2, all we need here is the correct preposition to collocate with the verb beforehand to create the correct phrasal verb, which means to go out and do something. And of course, the preposition that we need is out. If you set out to do something, it is your aim to go and get that thing done. For question number 3, after the gap, it talks about Stephen Johnson, and after that, it tells us what he says, or it paraphrases what he says. So bearing that in mind, let's go back to question number 3. After the gap, we've got 2. And what we need to do in this gap is refer to what Stephen Johnson says, which means that we need to choose the word according. For question number 4, what we need here is a verb which collocates with contribution. Do you do a far greater contribution, or do you make a far greater contribution? Of course, you make a contribution, and in this case, given the context of time, we need the past form, which is made. For question number 5, we need a relative pronoun which refers back to what was mentioned just before the comma. In other words, importance of creating an environment. What happens after the gap is the things that happens in this environment. So what we need here is the relative pronoun, the correct relative pronoun, which refers to a place in which something happens. And I've given you the answer. The answer is which. For question number 6, we have to refer back to question number 5, where it says, highlighted the importance of creating an environment in which, question number 5, ideas can develop. In the case of the brain center, now, the word that we need next refers back to the brain center and the idea of a place, an environment in which ideas can develop, which means that this substitutive word that refers to something that we've just mentioned is this. So here the answer is this. In the case of the brain center, this includes cafes and lounges. Question number 7, what we need here is another relative pronoun, the correct relative pronoun which refers to location, which is the context given just before the gap, because it says, which are open spaces, equipment and conversation can be shared. So we need the correct relative pronoun, which is of course where in this case. Question number 8, it says, the walls of the lounges are covered in a markable surface so that 2 researchers talking about their work can jot down thoughts, and then the context tells us that they can just write it on the walls or in these surfaces, and they don't need a paper, pen, etc., which might stop them from thinking. So what we need in this gap is the correct negative form to suggest this unnecessary element to stop and find a paper and pen. And of course the word that we need here is without.